Hello, welcome back to the TT podcast. This is part 2 with Clive Padgett. If you've not listened to part 1, make sure you go and do so. We discuss all sorts of things from Clive hitchhiking in New Zealand to HRC and loads of other things, so make sure you go and check it out. But I want to get straight back into it. TT 2010. Massive year.
Massive year.
For not only Ian Hutchinson, but
the
yourselves, the world.
Yep.
I mean, again, me and Steve were talking about it prior to the start. There was a lot of luck involved. But
always.
Yeah, you've got to be in it to win it.
Yep.
And you were in it, and you provided the best rider on the best bike for the whole duration of that TT.
That's right. And was it clear that could be done? I think when we went to the TT in 210, Ian was confident he could win any of the bike races. He was confident in each single motorbike and his own ability to win any of them. But I don't think any of us ever dreamt that you could win all 5. And, I mean, there had been I wouldn't say a pattern. Hutchie cycled across in 209 and we did a deal, and he did the 209 TT with us and won 2 in 2009. Finished 4 races. He actually slipped off on the oil that Mark Miller had put down, and he fell off the superbike. But the other 4 races with 2 wins from them. So when we went in 210, you know, we'd learnt a lot that Ian's would like on a motorbike, because Ian, you know, is quite specific about what he wants, what he likes. Steve will know that. He's worked with him with the Taz guys. I keep calling it Taz. I know it's something else these days. But and it's, how can I put it? We went with no expectations. We never do. My expectations are that the riders all go home on that boat on the Friday night or Saturday or Sunday, whenever they choose to go back.
Yeah.
What they do in between, there's never any pressure. My last words to all of them are, go out and enjoy yourself. Not, oh, you can pick up half a second there. I've got to find that in the bike. Outside of that, they're pushing themselves hard enough without any, you know, you see some teams giving it, go on, lad, you can have another 3 seconds, go a bit sharp, a bit faster. Go and enjoy yourselves. If you're having fun, you'll go fast anyway. Mm-hmm. To come away with those 5 wins was something else. And you say there was a bit of luck involved. Help a fellas. Conor was leading the first one, and his clutch went. Mm-hmm. You know, so Conor was, and he'd quite some margin. You know, bless his heart. Conor was away with it, and so you do need to have the whole thing. And again, back to the guys that work with me in the team, my friends in the team. We put together some motorbikes that finished all of the laps. Hutchie rode them extremely well. Our pit stops were strong. And we came away with the 5. And another thing that's not mentioned, because it's often overlooked, we were also involved with Claffey that year on the sidecar, and we won both sidecar races. So the 7 are never mentioned, but just
the only race you didn't have an involvement with, it didn't win, was the 0 race.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
So 7 was what? Hutchie won 5.
Yep.
Clive won 7.
Claffey.
With Claffey,
we helped
Claffey. If you pull the pictures up of Claffey on the sidecar, you'll see the big logos. Yeah. And so that's an achievement that's not talked about often, but yeah.
Was there any point in that week where you thought, oh, we could have? But like you say, there's no expectation, but there must be at some point you go, actually, the way he's riding, the way the bikes are going, we could get 5 here.
No.
Right.
I don't think we think like that. Everybody wants to win, but the minute you count your chickens, you know, you're going to get slack. You're not going to be focused. You know, even when the guys are coming, you know, you've seen the Cronknamona. Oh, yeah, wow. You know, we've got 57, 58, 59 seconds to go, whatever, before they're across the start and finish line. In that time, if you haven't put enough fuel in, they could run out of fuel. They could slip off at the Nook. They could slip off at Governor's Bridge. Mm-hmm. There's so much going to happen in that minute, isn't there, Steve?
Oh, flipping,
you know.
Yeah.
So I actually remain in. The guys might set off with the stand, and they might want to be walking down pit lane, either to Parc Fermé or to Winner's Enclosure if we're in there. But I actually stay in the Parc Fermé garage until that bank's gone over the line, because nothing's set in stone. No.
Yeah.
You know, again, it's just happened. I've seen teams lose races. You're anxious in pit lane. You want the thing full. You know, Stevie will tell you. You know, Stevie's been putting the fuel in our bikes there for the last 16 years, and I will ask him after the first pit stop, probably 10 times before the next pit. You put enough in, didn't you, Steve? You put enough in, and then the same after the second pit stop. You put enough in, Steve, didn't you? And it's just the will to try and win and be successful, and So yeah, no, it's there's a lot can happen in that last mile.
Yeah.
Chris brushed on it in part one. Conor Cummins. Now, 2022, flipping heck, the fastest ever Fireblade lap on a stocker.
133.116.
Pretty special. When is that kid?
Very special.
Or do you think he's going to win a TT?
He thinks he's going to win the TT, and I believe we're going to win a TT with him.
I would love to see it. I really
Me
would.
too. 12 podiums to date, 6 of those on our bikes. And what always surprises me is that, and by the way, the lap that Conor did, that was on a stocker. That wasn't on a superbike, by the way.
Yeah.
People, Conor did well, didn't he? He went under the wire, didn't he? Conor did well. Well, hang on a minute. Think about it. 2018 TT, he had a second and third in superbike and in senior. 2019, we're on the podium in both superbike races. 220 and 21, there wasn't one. Well, what's to say he's not going to be on the podium in a couple of races in 222? And of course he was. So why on earth people ever said that surprised me? They're just not paying enough attention. Because that man can ride a motorbike. Absolutely, no question.
Yeah, he doesn't go under the radar, but he does go under the radar. You always go Hickey, Harrison, and then you always forget to put Conor in there, and he's just as quick as those guys.
The last 6 superbike TTs, or big bike races, he's been on the podium. So, it's not rocket science to think he might be there next year.
Yeah.
But of course, there's a step to make. Peter's clearly, quite a step up there, as is Dean. We're not kidding ourselves, but there's not some bridge to gap. But as Dean's been doing BSB, Conor virtually did a full season last year, missed the last round because he fell down on a motocross bike or a super motab bike, playing in Belgium with Davey, and hurt himself, so couldn't do the last race. But he has gradually, if you've watched through the season, Conor started off in BSB Super Stock 1000, and he was 3 seconds behind the pace, and finishing 22, 23, 24, that area. If you watched him at the end of the season after the TT, he scored points in every round, and Brands Hatch isn't a great example because he didn't do the last one, but your Donington, similar, Brands is 2.44 miles round, and we earlier in the year we were 1.1 away from pole. So now as a racer, sometimes 1.1 is an age, but it's a lot closer than 2.7 and 3 seconds. And Conor's been closing that gap, and he's made a conscious effort to become faster on the short circuits, because a lot of people say they're road riders, they just do the roads. We don't ride on grass when we get to TT, do we, Steve? Is it still tarmac?
Try not to.
Yeah, it's still tarmac. And that's what always gets me about when people say, he's a road rider. Hang on a minute. Mike Aylward won at Mallory Park, 1.25 miles. But he also went to Isle-of-Man and won because he could ride a motorbike. Right now people say, I've often had it put to me, well, how would Valentino go? Well, he'd smoke him. He's just faster. If Valentino went, he would win. If he learnt it, of course. Agostini and won, didn't he?
Yep.
These guys, the higher the level of talent, the faster they will go on a road race track. It's tarmac.
Yeah.
Whatever the distance is. Barry Sheen might have criticised road racing, but the fastest road race in the world still actually is Barry at Spa back in 1977. I think it is. Yeah.
The long old circuit of Spa.
Yeah. So, Barry Sheen could ride the roads.
Did you ride both there, Clive? Because they changed it bang in your era when you were still competing.
I did the last ever Spa on the long track, Steve.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Took a lot of learning. I didn't have a great result there. It was probably my worst Grand Prix result. I think I finished 17th. But because I was being careful, I wanted to do it next Grand Prix. And it took some learning. You couldn't learn it in, and go fast, go super fast. It couldn't be learned in one a couple of sessions and out into the race. So that's why I hopefully never fell off for all that, that 6 or 8 months we were doing them. Because you've got to use it. There was a long-term planning goal. I wasn't thinking we're going to win World Championship that year. But Steve will tell you, he when he went to the TT to learn, he put so much effort in at flying over there, stopping in hotels, in hire cars, doing the laps, didn't you? Yep. And I'd bump into him on Main Street or something. It'd be 2 months before TT or whatever. Like a lot of the guys that take it serious, it's why Steve didn't just go there and do 3 laps and learn the place. And the fact that he won so early after having gone to the island was testament to all the hard work he put in and learning it. He could have stopped at home and given Vicky a cuddle for weekend, but no, he went and did 30 laps on the Isle of Man.
Took her with me.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I bet you love that.
But there's a reason people are successful normally.
Yeah. Well, we've touched on Conor. It'd be rude not to talk about Dave. I'm a massive Davey fan, coming from a very tiny, small supermoto career that I had. I'm a huge fan of Davy's.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What class is a career? My dad used to pay me pocket money to do it.
There we go.
So there we go. I was getting paid for it. My dad would keep me in tyres at least.
Yeah.
Huge fan of Davies, and he's a super talent. What we saw at 22 was, I think we saw every emotion from Davey. I don't know if a lot of people saw it, from the coverage, but he had a hard time at the TT 2022, but he also had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, fun. You can't not talk about Davey. I think Stuart said to me, Stuart Higgs, he's box office, and he is. He's good looking. I was going to say he's got a girl on his arm. He's got 2 girls on his arms. And I'm sorry, Abby, his girlfriend. But he's loving life. He's having so much fun. And whether that be on a snowboard, whether that be, on an MX bike or and so on, it's absolutely, it's fun to see. It's fun to be around. And we sort of, I wouldn't say that strategy. Davey said, "Come on, can we do more? Can we do more? Can I do some short circuits with you?" Because, and a lot of people will know this Yorkshire saying, Davey's got no ass about face. Because he's been known as a roads rider. And unfortunately, if they look back, 2016, Davey came to BSB with his granddad and his dad, and he had 2 wins in junior super stock.
Yep.
And then they ran out of funds and all the rest of it, like people do. So his talent was already there. It's just that then his opportunities came with John Burrows, for instance, on the roads, and he went road racing, but perhaps by default almost. It wasn't a path that he chose to take, it was just a way of racing motorbikes. And then at the back end of 2021, David 2020 with Honda. 2021 we decided, we went to a test evening actually, which Honda had invited us on to Cadwell, and myself and Dave and Stevie and Wayne, we were stood there in the paddock at an evening test. First time we've been to a meeting all year. What are we doing? Why don't we go racing? Because each one of us are there smiling our faces off, What are we doing? Let's get... So we entered the next weekend at Cadwell.
Yeah.
And Davey couldn't make it because he had COVID. But then we did the following round at Snedderton and he was in the points. And then the next weekend we finished 2nd and 4th at Donington. The talent's been there. And we went through and finished those last 5 rounds of the BSB that year. And we came back this year, at 222, sorry. I wouldn't say the rest is history because he developed. It was a lovely trajectory. We set off at the first round and 6th at Silverstone and just gradual. And people saying, when are you going to win one? And it naturally came at Snedderton. We were fairly dominant at Snedderton in qualifying and the race. And after that, it showed that we had 4 wins out of the last 6 rounds. And I think you have to learn racecraft. It's all right being able to ride a motorbike fast. He wasn't used to leading a BSB race. Yeah, we're saying he won 2 back in 2016. Yes, he did. But to go out there and lead and set the pace and, where is everybody? Watch my board. What's happening? Oh, he's catching me. Do I keep pushing? Are their tyre going off? Is my tyre going off? All of those things. How many laps to go? And there's a lot other than being able to ride a motorbike fast. The strategy comes into it. And clearly at the end of the year, as you saw, that came into play. He'd learned such a lot about the whole package of going motorbike racing.
I think racecraft wise, Northwest 200 and short circuit, some big lessons learned there.
Yeah, me too.
Massive.
Yeah, no, incredible. And again, the Northwest, we went to the Northwest. We built the new superbike for the roads for both Conor and Davey. Conor was injured still there, unfortunately, because he had a big off on a motocross bike. And then fell down at the chicane at Alton Park at the second round we did with him. The Northwest was quite a revelation with 4 second places. incredible. Broke 2-lap records, and some very, very, very fast and strong racing there, particularly with Glenn, with Lee, with Seeley, Alistair Seeley. And unfortunately, I did pull Davey out of the last Superbike race. As you're aware, our tyre supplier had some problems there. We didn't have any problems in the first race. We almost won it. Glenn won. We were second. But I'd choose off my own back. I'd taken some tyres from the previous year with us, not knowing there was going to be any issues, but I knew what had worked the previous year, so in case the new stuff didn't work, I had a backup plan. So we ran a previous year's model tyre that held up well. But even so, when Dunlop said that all the KR1808s had to be withdrawn, I couldn't leave Davey on the grid. We had to pull him out, and that was gutting for both of us, but it was the correct thing to do. The guy's got a long career. Had it gone on, down the back straight there, going through churches somewhere, station, sorry, churches where you went down, mate, I couldn't have had it on my conscience that I could let him out there for 7 laps. So we withdrew that one.
That shows you the mindset that Clive's in, where he takes previous tyres from previous years just in case. I bet there was no one else that decided to do that. But unfortunately, you couldn't use them in that instance anyway. And something similar happened at the TT with Davey. Yeah,
that's right. Davey had a tyre delaminate in the first Superbike race. We were actually in second and third with Conor, and they both went out on the same lap. And that, initially it didn't. I went to pick the bike up. Sue and I drove out, picked the bike up on Silby Straight, called for a pint at the Glen. And that was partly because I couldn't find the bike. We got back the paddock, and Davey was on good form, I've been line third in a senior TT. That's my first chance of a podium. But then over the next day or so, and if you do interview him, he'll tell you, people, that could have hurt you, that could have, and other people got into his head a little. And he went out in the 600 race on the Monday morning, and he came back. We finished 8th. God, mate, I'm sorry. I didn't have full throttle anywhere. I didn't put 100% anywhere. I just couldn't open the throttle. I was scared. Come on, let's have a cuddle. And we had a cuddle, and he went down to John's bus, and they played darts, and just got him in a different frame of mind. And he went out in the afternoon and had a much better ride, on the podium, his first podium. Conor was second, Davey was third. So he did manage to put it behind him, but it was a big shock, particularly in, I think, the friends around him, rather than just fans and spectators that were conscious of it, because I don't do any social media of any form. I don't have time for it. It's not I don't believe in it. I just don't have the time in the day. And I did look. One of my daughters sent me something, and someone had taken a picture of the back tyre, and this made me laugh. And if the man that put it is listening, quite incredible. Oh yeah, I can understand why that tyre went. Look at the rear sprocket. That's rusty. It was a gold. It was a gold back sprocket. Believe me. And we put new sprockets on every 2 laps. We really do.
Could be worse. It could be working for you.
Well, that's right. But so we actually do replace the sprockets every 2 laps, and not the front sprocket, the rear one. Yeah. And it just so made me laugh at the time, because the girls were a little bit, Dad, somebody said we've got a, I forget if it was Helen or Fiona that sent it. Somebody said we've got a rusty rear sprocket. Yeah, right. But it made me laugh. It took the tension out of me. Yeah. I thought, what on earth's the world coming to, and we picked Davey up, and as you saw, he went on to have an incredible week. And of course, that podium, he was only 2.8 seconds behind a podium. Conor got the podium, the final podium in the senior. Davey was 2.8 seconds away. But he also did his best ever lap in that race, when most people didn't, because it was very windy. The conditions were poor in that race. Yeah. And that's what I'd said to him when we got there, by senior race day, you will have done another 40 race laps of the Isle of Man, including practice. So let's not push on the first evening. If it goes well, by Friday you should have an idea where you're going a bit more. And that has to build. What people mustn't do is put any pressure on him, because Davey Todd's been to the TT 3 times. Yeah. And he had 3 years off. Whatever people say, we missed 2 TTs. No, we didn't. We missed 2 years and 51 weeks. Yeah. So he'd 3 years before he'd gone around that track again. And I told him to approach it like he was going again. This is just like pretend it's your first time there. Let's go and have some fun. Now, as a rider, you always think, and I know the visor goes down and you're doing your own thing, But at least I've instilled into him that there is no pressure from us. If it takes him another 3 years to learn it properly, so be it.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Just on that point of tyres, Clive, for 2023, for this coming year, British Championship and Northwest TT, Supersport and Superstock are going slicks.
That's right. I
Do you
understand.
think that's going to have a massive difference on pace over race distance?
Do you mean in BSB or the?
No, sorry,
Isle of
on for the Isle of Man, because we spoke obviously
yeah.
earlier about Conor doing the fastest
right.
ever lap on a Fireblade on the Stocker.
Well, personally, I don't know. And that's been the case from the early days. You know, we're going back such a long time. People are going to say, come on, things have moved on in 40 years. But when Mike Aylward was winning on the Ducati and the Suzuki, he was on treaded tyres. And I'm not in the past, by the way. We're right in the sharp end. However, a 600 doesn't have enough power, as you know yourself, Steve, to really want the extra grip. Have you ever run out of grip level on a 600 around there? No. And I don't think anyone else will. And what was missed last year, because you know, Dunlop got a little bit of stick with the blip, you know, that they had with the tyre. But when you look at Phillip Island, the tyre provider for MotoGP, they come in and change motorbikes, you know, you will remember, because the tyre wouldn't do race distance. We go to Thruxton, we go to Snedderton, Silverstone, I beg your pardon, and they're cutting race distances at BSB, so that tyre provider tyre will last race distance. It's a blip. Our tyre provider I still have total and utter belief in. And what I was coming on to there was about the treaded tyres. If Davey hadn't had that problem in the Saturday race that highlighted it, Peter actually broke the Isle of Man Superbike lap record by 15 seconds on a treaded rear tyre. He did it on a D213 rear tyre. So I actually don't believe that it's going to make a great deal of difference. And something else that brings that home, back in 2010, we're talking Hutchie. Hutchie did a 1:30.714 back in 210 on the Stocker on the last lap. And that was an unbelievable lap. First ever 30 mile an hour lap on a 130 mile an hour lap on a Stocker. That tyre had done 4 laps. The Superbike lap record at the time was only 4 or 5 seconds faster, I think 4 point some seconds faster. And that was on a slick that's changed every 2 laps. So there's another example, 4 laps, 1:30.7.
Yeah.
Then the lap record at the time was 1:31 for the Superbike. So I actually don't think it's going to have... and what's your own view, Steve?
Well, 2022, apart from sidecars, every race was won on a treaded tyre.
That's right.
Every race.
Yeah.
So
And regardless
I
of the
do
problems,
believe there's a possibility that race record might go on a Superstock, on a slick, just for longevity.
That's right.
However, lap record, no.
That's right. Yeah, I think it won't have a great difference. I do believe you're correct there, Steve. Longevity, yes. But over a single lap, I don't think it's going to make much difference at all. But the Superstock race being 3 laps and not able to change the tyre, which I concur with, I think that's a great idea. I think that the edge grip and the drive grip on that last lap from the slick might just have, give it a fraction more. But it remains to be seen. Certainly, full credit to Dunlop last year with the 213s. There were some phenomenal lap times. Conor's lap, of course, again on a Stocker, was on treaded tyres front and rear.
And fastest ever on a blade as well.
We spoke about your involvement, obviously 2010 sidecars as well. Pretty much been involved in all the wins apart